In today's video, we're doing this. What's up everybody, my name is Arthur and welcome to my YouTube channel where we mostly talk about photography and well, other things that I like. So, you know, if you're into photography, consider subscribing to this channel. Anyway, so what you saw back there was a photo shoot that I did in ultraviolet light. Now, a couple of things you need to know about ultraviolet light. It's awesome, stuff glows under ultraviolet, and it makes for some really interesting photos. Now, shooting in ultraviolet comes with its own set of problems because it's a low light photo shoot and you kind of need to adapt to it. I love shooting in low light. That's actually how I started photography, so I just feel like fish in the water doing something like this. But for other people who are not maybe used to shooting in low light, this would be really challenging, but at the same time, trust me, this is really fun, this is really interesting. So this video is going to be me telling you all about all of the things you're going to need, the camera gear and the settings that you will use to get these kinds of photos. And by the way, if you do try this photo technique, I would love to see your photos, so you can find me on Instagram. And if you have any questions, you know, you can ask them there. And just, you know, I would love to see some of your work. So, to keep it concise, here's the stuff that you're going to need. You're going to need an ultraviolet light source. Now, there's a bunch of things you can use. I bought ultraviolet light bulbs. You can find these things in your local Home Depot. Myself, I bought them off AliExpress for like $5 a piece. I bought them there because they're cheap. I will leave a link in the description so you can get them online as well if you want to save some money. Now, but the problem with ultraviolet light bulbs is that these things are really dim. So what I did is I took a bit of cardboard, some imagination, and a bit of tinfoil, and I made these reflectors so I could direct the ultraviolet light where I need it to be. Otherwise it was scattered around the room, and you know, shooting in low light, especially if you don't have a full frame camera, that's going to introduce quite a bit of problems. So some other things you might need is pretty much anything that glows in ultraviolet. I will leave a list of stuff that glows under UV in the description so you can check that out. But specifically for what I did, you will need some highlighting markers, a plastic tray, some pliers, some paper towels just because you're going to make a lot of mess. Well, at least I did during the photo shoot. It was a complete mess. And of course you will need a brush. So this is how I got the splatter effect on the model's face. All I did was I popped open one of the highlighting markers and I squeezed out all of the ink in the plastic tray. Then I used a brush, I just dipped it in and then flicked it on the model, and it left this splatter pattern on her face. One thing though to keep in mind is that we didn't find that the highlighting ink agitated the skin. However, your skin might be different, so you know, just proceed with caution so you don't get any rashes or anything on your face or on your body, you know. And pretty much after I did this, we were ready to do the photo shoot. Also, we tried some other things. We tried to make bubbles that glow in ultraviolet. That didn't really work out. We made something, but it wasn't really what I expected. We also played around with glow sticks, which is awesome because glow sticks glow in ultraviolet without breaking them, and if you do break them, they glow even more intensely. So you can actually use those glow sticks as a sort of a light source. It's just fun to play around. So moving on to the camera gear that I used. I was shooting on the Canon 80D. Now the thing is, it's an APS-C size camera and it poses a lot of problems because you would be better off shooting with a full frame, something like a Canon 5D Mark III, 4, whatever, Canon 6D. Those things perform a lot better in low light. But since I don't own a full frame camera, I was shooting with the 80D. It did a good job, but the thing is that I was pushing the camera to its limits. I was shooting at 2500 ISO, 3200 ISO, and at this point there's quite a bit of noise in the image. So I had to do a bit of post-production work to get rid of the noise. Next up is the camera. Next up is the lens. I used the Sigma 18 to 35 f1.8 arc lens. It's an awesome piece of glass, but it's a bit pricey for an APS-C size camera. So an alternative is the Canon's nifty 50. It's a 50mm f1.8 lens. It's plenty fast and it costs about $150. But there is a even better option. I also shot with this lens, and this is something I strongly recommend just because of the value for your money. And I was shooting on a vintage lens. I was shooting on the Russian Helios 44-2. It's a 58mm lens with an aperture of 2. So this lens is fast, it performed well in low light, but the best part about this lens is that, well, it costs only $20. The only drawback of using this lens is that you will have to use manual focus. However, that's a small trade-off to pay for a lens this awesome. Next up, you will definitely need a tripod if you're shooting on an APS-C size camera. Now, when you have your camera on a tripod, you can actually drop the shutter speed way lower than handheld, and especially if your subject isn't moving all that much. You can go really low with the shutter speeds. I went down to something around 1/30 while shooting at 35mm, and I still got plenty sharp images. So this is something you should play around because, you know, shooting in these conditions without a full frame camera, you need to have every advantage you can get when it comes to gathering light. Well, this is the fun part about shooting in low light. You know, you get to break some of the rules just to get the results, and, you know, seeing them actually go through and working properly, it's awesome, it's fun. Another thing that would help you definitely is a LED light. Now, I used this Chinese LED light. By the way, shout out to this thing because it costs about $40 and it's awesome value for your money. You can adjust the color temperature and the brightness on this thing for only $40, and this thing works perfectly fine. So shout out to this thing. If you're on the market for a LED light, I will leave the link in the description. Anyways, what I was using this light for, I was just using it as a fill, not a fill light, but as an ambient light, just bouncing it off the walls, so I would create this ambient lighting in the room so we wouldn't be shooting in complete darkness. And this goes also for pretty much any other lights you would have in your room, like some ambient lights, night lights, whatever. You can turn these things on so they would create this ambient lighting in the room, so you're not shooting in complete darkness. So okay, so this is awesome. We're almost done with all of these things. The last thing we need to do is adjust the camera settings, and we're good to go. We're ready to shoot, you know. So here's the thing. Above the shutter speed we already talked. If you have the tripod, just check how low you can drop the shutter speed before you're getting any motion blurriness into your photos. About the aperture, well, as wide as possible, as wide as your lens allows it to be, because, you know, you need to gather as much light as possible. And lastly, the ISO. And when it comes to ISO, it really depends from camera to camera, because of course you want to get as much light as possible, but at the same time you don't want to sacrifice the image quality with introducing noise. So what I would say is that, you know your camera better than I do, so just pick the maximum ISO level that you could possibly get without introducing too much noise into your image. So with my Canon 80D, I felt comfortable going to 2500 ISO, but no more than that. So it really depends from camera to camera. And of course, if you're shooting full frame, you can go up to like 5, 6, 7, 8,000 ISO, even more than that. So if you did everything as I said, these should be the results. Anyway, this is all from me. Hope you learned something from this video. Use this photography technique and go out and make something awesome. I would love to see it. Remember, you can hit me up on Instagram. I'm not doing much on the weekends anyway, so, you know, talk to me if you want to. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.